Ladies and gentlemen, guests, fellow Brock community members, I am Michael Drenger. I'm a professor of history and one of the people you might recognize from past years of the Sankey lecture because I've been involved from early years. I am not the official MC. I'm very glad that we have Professor Elizabeth Neswold and Elizabeth Flossack contributing to the event together with many others. Professor Elizabeth Neswold will be our MC. I'm not getting the event going. I'm only here to just say a few words in advance. First of all, so good to see real people in the same room. So thank you for coming. Give yourselves all a big hand. And a big thank you. You've taken the energy to come here. We hope you'll stay for a reception afterwards where we can visit a little bit and get to chat with our speaker, Professor Heather Calloway, and our university librarian at Brock here, David Sharon. They are going to be running an Antiques Roadshow Masonic style. They've brought some items themselves. If any of you would like to chat about things that you have or know about, secrets from the closets and back rooms of your lodges or family collections, please stay for the reception afterwards. There are a few details that I will note. This is the first year that we're running a parallel event. For 3 years now, we've been running the Sankey lectures only online, like so many other events. Previously, we only ran the Sankey lecture live in rooms like this. This year, with the help of the intrepid tech team, we are going to be running the event live and with a live stream. So a big thank you and a big round of applause for our tech team. And I'm not part of it. I'm pressing all the wrong buttons here. So there we go again. There is a live stream. It's running in the background, but I don't think they're listening to this right now. We'll get started in just a few minutes because there are still guests arriving. I might be repeating myself. I'm running around in circles a little bit today. But please be patient. The start time is 3 o'clock. That's a suggestion so that we can let all our visitors arrive on time for the full event. There will be a chance for questions after the event, and we hope that you in the audience will ask questions. We'll also try to get the live stream involved as well. This is going to be a little bit of one of those kinds of tests for us here, for me too. That's why I'm especially thankful for our tech troupe. If you know of someone who can't be here but might like to join us, and there still might be time, pass on this link. Actually, this link right there, live.sankeylectures.ca. That's the link to the live stream where friends could join us even if they're not here or they're shut in somewhere. For social media posts, just to help gather all the announcements that you might make on your favorite social media site, please use the hashtag Sankey Lecture 2023. That would be our suggestion and request. We encourage you, of course, to share ideas during the lecture. Maybe you could post a question for Professor Calloway that she could address afterwards if you don't want to ask it in person. We can then gather the questions afterwards. And here we have an outline of the event, which there's a fuller outline in the programs in the back. If you don't have a program and would like one, just put up your hand and Rachel is available to give you a program. We also have extra masks if anybody would like a mask. We're still in COVID times, unfortunately. No one is required to wear a mask, but we have extras if you would like. And again, put up your hand for either a program or a mask and Rachel will help you out. We'll get going at about 1/4 after, I think. And I should just ask Derek, most guests have come in from outside? I believe so, yeah. Okay, so we will get started in just a few minutes. So, chat away, and I'll invite Professor Neswald to this podium to get the event going in just a few moments. Thank you, everybody. Excuse me, everybody. I do have one more request. This is for the entire group. I've got a group of students who I've asked to monitor the live stream for possible questions from our digital audience in the ether. I'll let all of you know that it's possible to follow the chat on the live stream. There's a delay, so make sure your sound is off if you're using a tablet or a phone to follow the live chat. But you're all encouraged to follow the chat. There's apparently lots of greetings from all over the province and beyond. So if you want to get a connection between here and our internet audience, please follow the live chat. That's number one. Number two, to my student team and everybody else, if you notice a question in the live chat during the lecture or during the questions that you think is a really good question and no one's asking it, please mark it down and raise it on behalf of one of our digital friends, okay? So let's work as a team here to connect with our friends beyond and help integrate them into the conversation. Thank you.
We're going to get started now. I think it's time. I'd like to welcome everyone here. So first off, good afternoon to everybody. Welcome to our community guests. Welcome to Brock University students and colleagues, to our Dean of Humanities, Carol Merriam over here, and most especially a welcome to our Freemason friends. A welcome to the live stream participants who are not here, who I do not see. This is the 14th annual Sankey lecture, and this is the first time that we are here back in this space since the beginning of the COVID pandemic. So welcome especially everyone now to this revival, to being able to see each other in person again and to converse in person. So we're absolutely delighted to welcome you all here, both virtually in the live stream, here to Brock University. Now, Professor Dreger introduced me briefly. I'm Professor Neswald. I'm in the history department here at Brock University. I teach the history of science and technology, and I also work quite a lot with material cultures and with objects, which is why I'm so excited to be emceeing this lecture today, which has as its subject the objects of Freemasonry. So I'm your MC, and I'm going to give you a short overview of the proceedings today. And you can also find them in the lecture program in somewhat more detail, and behind me in somewhat less detail. So in a few minutes, I'm going to pass on the microphone to Professor Elizabeth Flosek, who is Associate Dean of Humanities, who's going to say a few opening words here and give the land acknowledgement. Next comes David Sharon, who's the Head of Archives and Special Collections here at Brock, and he will later be hosting the Antiques Roadshow, and you can talk to him about your Masonic objects. This will be followed by a few words from this year's award winner of the Grand Lodge Scholarship, Paige Groot. And then I will introduce our main event today, the speaker, Professor Heather Calloway. After the lecture, then you will have an opportunity to ask questions about the lecture, both here in the room, please raise your hand, and also in the chat via live stream. As Mike said, we have quite a few students here monitoring the live stream, and they will then let me know when questions arise. And Professor Dreger will also be monitoring that. We will close out the event with a few words from James Ireland, the Deputy Grand Master of the Grand Lodge here in Ontario. And then we move on to the reception, and that's across the hall, right, Mike? So he will guide you across the hall to our reception. So that's just a brief overview. And now I want to welcome you on behalf of the university, and I would like to introduce Professor Flosek. So Professor Flosek is Associate Professor in the Department of History, and she's Associate Dean of Research and Graduate Studies for the Faculty of Humanities. She's a researcher, an award-winning teacher, exhibit curator, amateur chef, and what's particularly important today is that she is a hockey mom, and she is just in from her son's tournament, and I'm sorry I forgot to ask, is it yay or not yay?
Gold medal.
It's yay, okay. We should all clap for this. She's a very happy soccer mom, hockey mom today. Professor Flosek holds a BA from Mount Allison University, a master's degree from the University of Oxford, and a PhD from the University of Cambridge. Her areas of expertise are Weimar Germany and Nazi Germany, gender and nationalism, memory and heritage, and oral history. And she also enjoys connecting Niagara history to broader global events and working with community partners on public-facing history projects. So she's here to say a few words of welcome. I'd like you to come up, please.
Is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. The territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendship of Indigenous people. Deputy Grand Master, Professor Calloway, Freemason friends, colleagues, students, community members, and all our guests joining us online from near and far, on behalf of Brock University, welcome to the 2023 Sankey Lecture. This is our 14th Sankey Lecture, and I know that number 14 is not a significant number when it comes to anniversaries, but this is our first in-person lecture since 2019, and of course, as Professor Dreger has already mentioned, it is our first hybrid Sankey Lecture, so these are pretty significant in terms of the anniversary. And we're certainly thrilled to welcome you all back here to the Sean O'Sullivan Theatre. We always look forward to the annual Sankey Lecture as an opportunity for us to learn together. And I recently was reading over the titles of past Sankey Lectures, and I have this wonderful poster here that has the posters from the first 10, and then scribbled on the back the 3 online lectures. And it reminded me how fortunate we've been to have had the chance to broaden our understanding of the rich history and legacies of Freemasonry and fraternalism through the incredible variety of topics and themes that our past speakers have covered. And I'm really looking forward to learning more today. But the Sankey Lecture is also the opportunity for Brock to reconnect with our Freemason friends and to renew and further strengthen and nurture the important relationship that we have enjoyed over the years. This is a relationship that has enriched our teaching and learning and research through the Sankey collection, and has provided financial support to graduate students in our History MA program through the generous Grand Lodge of Ancient, Free, and Accepted Masons of Canada in the Province of Ontario Entrance Scholarship. And of course, without your generosity and friendship, there would be no Sankey Lecture. So once again, welcome and thank you.
Thank you, Liz. I would like next to invite David Sharon to the podium. David is the head of archives and special collections at Brock University, and in this role, he curates the Sankey collection. This is a donation from Charles Sankey, and it forms the key part of the cooperation between Ontario's Masons and Brock University. So David will give a report from the University Archives.
Thank you very much, Elizabeth, and it is wonderful to see everybody here. I'm going to brag a little bit. We have the largest Freemason book collection in any Canadian university, so that's pretty good. And it is mostly due to people like you who have supported us over decades, beginning with Dr. Sankey, who started to give us parts of his personal library in the 1970s and asked his fellow brothers to do the same. And it's continued to grow through the years. And we have three endowments from Freemasons that has continued to let it grow. And we continue to see the generosity from people all across Canada, mostly Ontario, sometimes even in the States. And we are continually working hard to build this collection, make it stronger. And the thing I love to report most is the history department here has a course on fraternalism. And professors like Mike Dreger and Elizabeth Vlasic send the students to us all the time, and they are discovering all these great resources. And we are seeing the fruits of that all the time. These students come back asking more and more questions, and we hope when they're done at Brock, they keep sharing this information, saying we have this wonderful collection, and encourage other people to come use it. That said, everyone can use our collection here. You don't have to be a student or a faculty member. I want to welcome anyone who's interested in looking at the collection to come visit us one day and take a look, see what resources we have, maybe see how you can add to it. Our doors are always open during business hours. Monday through Friday, 9:30 to 4:30, we are open. But if you ever want to connect with me, just write archives@brocku.ca, and we can start a conversation of maybe your collections, maybe they should be here. If they don't, if it's not going to come to Brock, we can help you find a good spot for it. And if you want to come visit and do research with us, that's what we are best at, is helping spread the knowledge. So with that, I thank you all for being here, online and in person, and look forward to seeing you all in the future.
Thank you, David. I encourage everyone to take him up on his offer. He's genuine. It's a really, really fun collection to look at. I would like to now invite Paige Groot to the podium. Paige is a graduate student in history at Brock University. She was co-organizer of yesterday's symposium, and she is this year's recipient of the Grand Lodge Award. The award's full title is the Grand Lodge of Ancient, Free, and Accepted Masons of Canada in the Province of Ontario Entrance Scholarship. So I taught Paige this year, so I can attest that this prize is well-deserved. Paige will now come up and she'll tell you a little bit about her research project.
I am not very good at public speaking, so please be patient with me. So, hello everyone, my name is Paige Groot. I am a graduate student in Brock University's History Master's Program, and as Dr. Neswald has said, I am the recipient of this year's Grand Lodge of Ancient Free and Accepted Masons of Canada in the Province of Ontario Entrance Scholarship, and I would like to thank the Mason community and the Deputy Grand Master of the Ontario Masons for the generous support. My research is on woodland resource management in the High Weald in southeast England, and I am looking at the late medieval and early modern period. So the High Weald is an important subject of study because of its modern and historical significance. Today, the High Weald has an exceptionally dense wooded area with about 35,900-ish acres of forest, and about 70% of that is classified as ancient woodlands. The relevance of ancient forests as a climate change solution makes the High Weald a particularly important area of focus. Late medieval and early modern Europe was a world of wood. From farmers, tanners, and glassmakers to blacksmiths, hunters, and the Royal Navy, wood was a natural resource used by everyone from laity to elites. The economic and socio-cultural significance of forests led to intensive efforts at forest management in early modern England. In the 17th century, perceptions of dwindling wood sparked anxieties over woodland resource scarcity, which led to the establishment of several wood conservation acts. England has a much longer history of intensive woodland management that significantly predates the Conservation Acts of the 17th century. Although some scholarly attention has been paid to these management practices, the true scope of possible wood famines in the early modern period is not fully understood. Few works have been published that concern themselves with the reality of woodland insecurity, with deforestation, woodland management, and so on in this period. My research project tracks deforestation, woodland use, and woodland management from 1400 to 1700 in select parishes within the High Weald, both in Kent and East Sussex. I am studying the booming woodland industries of the High Weald, such as timber felling, iron mining, charcoal, glass, and textile production, hunting, and grazing. Using historical geographic information systems and spatial analysis methods, my hope is that my research will reveal important patterns of woodland use, which may help determine the reality of wood scarcity in England in the 17th century. My project combines archival research and environmental science, and my hope is that this will allow us to better understand past approaches to land management. Studying historical natural resource management through an interdisciplinary lens is an essential part of creating a more sustainable future. This scholarship has allowed me to prioritize my research this year, and it's also helping fund part of my upcoming research trip to England, where I'll get to meet with some landscape ecologists, archaeologists, and also work in various archives. I look forward to sharing my final work with you all, and I'd like to thank you again.
Thank you, Paige. So finally, I would like to introduce the person we are all here to see. Dr. Heather K. Calloway is Executive Director of University Collections at Indiana University, where she is responsible for the stewardship of the university's vast collections. I learned about the extent of these collections at dinner last night, and they are very encompassing and very diverse, and include a very large number of fruit flies. Prior to this position, she spent 14 years as museum curator and managing director of digital and social media at the headquarters of the Scottish Rite Freemasons in Washington, D.C. In this capacity, she introduced new approaches to museum tours, exhibits, and collection access as public interest in Freemasonry increased. She has also held positions as the inaugural archivist for the Archives and Special Collections at Washington University, University Archivist for the Purdue Museum and Archives at Salisbury University, and librarian and archivist for the Franciscan Monastery in Washington, D.C. Dr. Calloway has a doctorate in higher education management from the University of Pennsylvania, where she wrote a dissertation with the title, Secret Vaults of Forgotten Treasures, Freemasonry's Collections and Material Culture in a Declining Fraternal Age. She holds a master's degree in library science from the University of Maryland at College Park and a second MA in theological studies from the Iliff School of Theology in Denver, Colorado, where she focused on fraternal and religious organizations. She holds a master's. Dr. Calloway earned her BA at the University of New Mexico in religious studies and political science. She was born and raised in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and is a member of the Cherokee Nation. Dr. Calloway, in addition, serves on the National Board of Archives for the Episcopal Church, is co-founder and director for the Historical Society for American Fraternalism, and a board member for the J.H. Rathbone Museum and Resource Center. She is an active volunteer with Alpha Chi Omega and was awarded Outstanding Organization Advisor in 2016 and again in 2018. Dr. Calloway lives in Bloomington, Indiana with her husband, her son, and their little dog. As a passionate educator, Dr. Calloway is really interested in the need for saving our records, the ephemera, and the artifacts. She regularly publishes and presents lectures and workshops on the necessity to preserve our history, and especially the records of lodges, clubs, churches, and related organizations. As part of this work, she has developed the Augmented Archives Project, a project for teaching and learning with primary resources through the use of augmented reality technology. This project is online, and I recommend anyone interested in it to just put in your search engine, Augmented Archives Project, and you can get to the project and have a look around yourself. And now, without further ado, I would like to introduce Dr. Heather Calloway for her lecture.
Hello. How is everyone today? Great, great. So as they said, I am Heather Calloway, and I'm Director of University Collections at Indiana University. I want to begin today by thanking Michael for the hospitality, Liz for the warm introduction, Lisa Betts, Brock University, the Grand Lodge of Canada in the province of Ontario for the invitation to speak today. I would also like to extend my gratitude to all of the students at Brock University, especially Paige and Shannon, and the organizing committee for the symposium yesterday. All of the brethren that are attending here in person and virtually, for your interest in learning more about the preservation of fraternal cultural heritage. So I've been doing this for a while. And today I'd like to share about the importance of developing a long-term vision and plan for the preservation of fraternal cultural heritage. I bring a very enthusiastic passion to the protection and conservation of fraternal objects, places, and the history of these societies. As you may or may know, or you've already heard, I've been studying how to preserve collections of all kinds for over 20 years now. I'm an archivist, and I've turned administrator, so I don't get to work with the collections as much as I used to, but I've worked with unique and rare materials of all kinds. I'm often asked how I got into this field, and my friends like to say, saving fraternal stuff. So throughout the afternoon, I will tell you a few stories. So one of the first, I knew I was hooked on saving stuff when I was given the task of cleaning out the basement. This was at work, and we had a huge metal cabinet full of stuff. They asked me to do it because I think they couldn't think of what else to have me do. I was volunteering there during grad school, so I started opening it up and see what's in there. Most of it was Masonic aprons from all different ages. They were handmade, they were machine-made, and a little bit of everything. But in with these aprons was a Masonic collar. And luckily, there was a little card attached, and it fell to the floor. And I picked it up, and it read that it was President Truman's Masonic collar. That collar was in the basement, in a metal shelf, and nobody knew that we had it. It's now on display. The past Sankey lectures have included interesting academic topics, from rituals to hijinks to historic characters, anti-Masonic themes, and more. But if we don't actively work to preserve the material culture of these fraternal organizations, the history that is used in these studies, history, just like the Sankey collection, will disappear. So, what is a hidden collection? It's not a place where you hide images you don't want people to see on your phone. It's not a video game you can play, although there is one with that name. You may not know what a hidden collection is, but it is an archival resource that is inaccessible or not discoverable due to the insufficiency of description. Maybe it doesn't have a finding aid. Maybe it's not online. Maybe it's in a room where nobody can get to, that's always locked. Sometimes they're considered hidden because archivists just have not had the time to process or to catalog them. Many archivists work alone, and there's only so much time in the day to get to all of our collections. Other times, it's just because they're put away and people don't realize their value for research. These collections can also include hidden histories of communities, places, and populations that have been insufficiently recognized or unattended. In the fraternal context, this would be collections from women, minorities, and many smaller fraternal groups that came and disappeared already in the 19th and 20th centuries. My goal is to have no more hidden fraternal collections. Museums and archives need to have a more complete approach to and thinking of collecting and using the collections at the same time. Why are we spending so much money on preservation and storage, and what good are these collections if people can't access them, use them, or even see them? My talk today will cover several key areas in the field of collections management, including stewardship, preservation, and access, specifically to fraternal collections. These points are essential to being able to care for collections appropriately. And I will share some fun and interesting stories about each along the way. So check this out. What is the oldest thing you have found in a closet, in an attic, or in a basement? How about an actual skeleton? If you Google skeletons and fraternal groups, many stories pop up. Here's one. Paul Wallace was alone, repairing overloaded circuits in an old red brick building, when he discovered a tiny door and a dark hallway between two walls. Inside was a black wooden box. Curious, Wallace tugged at it from its dark resting place. A white shroud appeared, then leathery ribs, then white candles. It was like a Dracula movie, Wallace said. The top of the skull was covered, but you could see the rib cage. For a good 20 minutes, Wallace sat frozen. Finally, he returned the skeleton to its home between the walls of Warrenton Lodge of the Independent Order of Oddfellows. When police learned of Wallace's discovery, they rushed to get a search warrant and seize the remains. State medical examiners are studying the bones. Around town, neighbors were speculating about who it was and why it was there. The strangest thing about this mini-drama was captivating this small town and was strikingly similar to mysteries that have played out across the states. It turns out that skeletons like Jane Doe Oddfellow, as one officer calls her, reside in closets, drawers, attics, and crawl spaces in Oddfellows lodges nationwide. To members of the age-old fraternal order, the skeleton is a symbol of mortality, a treasured relic used in one of their most solemn and secret rituals. But for many residents in towns where the bones are found, the whole thing is just plain odd. So, collection stewardship. Finding a skeleton in the closet is nothing new. Strange things are often found in old lodge buildings. Costumes, artwork, furniture, swords, lights, banners, flags, aprons, jewels, badges, and of course, countless goofy hats. These strange things make up the material culture of these organizations. So, material culture of fraternal groups has been referenced and referred to as far back as at least this book. So, Preston's Illustrations of Masonry from London in 1775 mentions the funeral processions with, quote, the regalia and ornaments of the deceased. And that's the earliest mention of material culture that I have been able to find so far. Over 20 years ago, the Heritage Health Survey reported that 89% of collection holding institutions in the States had inadequate storage facilities. Problems ranged from a lack of space to inappropriate environments. 65% of all institutions reported damage to the collections due to improper storage. Being in this field for my entire career, I can tell you that storage remains the #1 challenge for most collections. Stewardship. When I talk about this, it means how we are caring for these collections. Ways to care for the material culture, the books, the archives, and more. Improving the physical conditions in storage is a highly effective and easily achievable way to boost the preservation of these items. For those who are not aware, collections managers must constantly examine the risks to see if these spaces where we care for the collections is adequate. Possession of collections has a legal, social, and ethical obligation to provide the proper storage for this stuff, the proper management, and the proper care, not just for the collections, but the associated documentation that goes with it, so that we have the proper intellectual control and know what we have. Professionals in the field of collections care, whether in museums, archives, libraries, or scientific collections, natural history, each have professional organizations, such as the American Alliance of Museums, Society of American Archivists, American Library Association. I could go on and on. These groups and many others create guidance and standards for their members on the care and ethics of caring for collections. So, orphaned collections. For those of you that don't regularly work with them, I've found that some of the collections most at risk are those that have become orphaned. An orphan collection is just that, a collection that has lost its curator, curatorial support, or whose owner has just abandoned it. Sometimes these are items that have been disposed of without any consultation. Other times these are offered to another institution where it might be better cared for. These items might be in danger due to destruction, neglect, physical deterioration. They lost or they never had a caretaker. Then there's endangered collections. In addition to orphaned collections, these lack curatorial support or they're in danger of losing that support. They may become orphans soon. So, what do? Risk management becomes even more important. Emergencies and crises happen. To take care of endangered collections, we need to concentrate on this risk management. In my first few months at my current job, we had a flood, we had a mold outbreak, and we had several moves of collections to make sure they were safe. I found facilities people welding over archives. Yes, that means fire over paper in the library. These weren't fraternal collections. They were typical collections in a university, a library, an archive, and a museum. The collections I'm talking to you about today are located at your local lodges. Those that are in larger established libraries, archives, and museums, such as those at a university, tend to have better support from professionals working with them to appropriately store and care for them. But think about the stuff at your local lodge, in your hometown, and even some grand lodges. They don't have anyone looking after their history. There might be an officer with the title historian, or a librarian, or archivist, but do they do anything with the collection? Where do they keep their items? A closet, an attic, a locker room, a basement? Masons are well-meaning to care for their history, but they aren't trained in library studies or archival science or preservation or conservation. A long-term plan for these kind of items includes a preservation plan, a disaster plan, trained professional staff to help advise, funds to help with the preservation, and then grants, gifts, or donations also to help care for these things. If a chapter or a lodge closes, where do the minutes go? The records, the regalia, the photographs, and other memorabilia. Sometimes they just leave in a home and go to another one, but do we actually know where it ends up? One of the reasons I am so passionate about saving this history is because of the number of times I have been contacted and asked, we're closing, we're selling our building, we're merging. Then what happens? History isn't just found in the archives and material culture. Historic buildings where these groups meet are also at risk. Many historic spaces are irreplaceable today. Windows are broken or rotten. The roof might leak. Old growth wood is in need of repair. Deferred maintenance. So, we've got to do some preservation. We can't keep waiting for a crisis and then trying to band-aid what happens. Fraternal groups have an interest in the preservation of their materials, and they have a unique community of support that can take care of this. You may wonder, so where do we start? What do we do? In the picture here, I have some friends that have been working with me to preserve some materials in Indiana, and we just started by reaching out and helping. But most people see a picture like this other one, a building, and wonder, I don't know what goes on behind the doors. So we've been working to change that. So what do you keep? There's so much stuff. You can't keep it all. But some advice would be anything that's original, anything that's handwritten, a manuscript, minutes, periodicals, underrepresented groups, as I mentioned earlier, or women, or the youth groups. I'm also asked this question a lot. So, all these things that hang around the lodge, are they art, or is it just disposable? I happen to think that is art. And these items have recently attracted a large following online. Sometimes it's almost impossible to put a value on this because we don't know what it would sell for. Folk art is irreplaceable. Insurance, do you have it? Does your building have it? And will it cover your collections if there is a problem? If I only teach you one thing today, I'm going to teach you a new word. It's an archival word. Deaccession. Yes, it's a real word. My former boss at the Scottish Rite thought I made it up, and he was always giving me a hard time and said that's not a real thing. Yes, it is. If we don't prioritize our collections and decide what is really important to keep, we're going to keep seeing this. This was last month, and this is an Oddfellows skeleton, and it was auctioned, and this one happened to go for over $3,000. Another challenge that we have, technology. Almost 20 years ago now, there was a major survey that said 4.8 billion artifacts held in public trust in the States were at risk. 190 million needed immediate care. While follow-up surveys to this were proposed, no results have been produced or published. Since this was produced, efforts to standardize access and storage to digital materials has become an additional challenge in the preservation of collections. It's difficult to even determine how to create these digital surrogates and what this will allow to improve access to paper, photograph, audiovisual, and other types of collections while protecting them from damage. One of the things the archival community is now facing is how do we keep up and how do we store all these digital collections? Does your fraternal group have digital items? What are you doing to preserve them? So I promised some curiosities. So we're getting to that. This is a Dumoulin goat. It really is a goat that was made back in the day that they would sell to lodges for their hijinks. Not Masonic, these were others. And this is a catalog, a piece out of a catalog for the Oddfellows where they were selling costumes and regalia. There is a wonderful museum in Illinois, if you ever can make it, the Dumoulin Museum, and my colleague John runs that and has amazing hijinks artifacts there on display, and you can try them out. So in my job, I have been asked often, what do I do? What do I do? So I received a message on Facebook from somebody I didn't know, and he said, thanks for responding to my Facebook message, and he had questions about the images inside this book. And he said there was another one up for auction at that time, and he found that his version was different from the one that was on auction, and was asking me what we had and what we might know about the author, as well as the various versions of this book. And as you can see, for those of you that are familiar with Freemasonry, this has symbols and things that are found in the lectures, and they were in this book, much like a tracing board, so very similar. And he also produced, tracing boards as well. So my friend's name is Chad, and he said, I'm going to send you digital files of these, and if you ever find out any more about it, I'd love to know. And he's done some presentations on the book that they have. It's at a lodge in Ohio, and it was published in 1866. This particular book I haven't been able to find except at the Library of Congress, the one that was up for auction, and the one that this little lodge has in Ohio. I know there have to be more out there. They're still using it in teaching at the lodge in Ohio. They used the book, which is pretty impressive. It's a collection of emblematic plates. The reason it was made like this is you could take them apart and you could frame them so that they could use it for teaching, or you could keep it bound together in one volume. These are some of the finest lithographic drawings, and they were printed on the best plate paper they had at the time, and they're really beautiful, as you can see there. That's just one story. Another story. I was taking a friend of mine to a meeting. He had a Masonic meeting in Indiana, and I was driving him across the state, and we saw this huge building in Muncie. and it had Masonic symbols all over. And we had time, so we stopped. And I said, it looks like it isn't a lodge anymore. And we thought, I wonder if we can get inside. So we pulled into the parking lot, and I said, well, I'll just tell them I'm a professor and I want to see if I can take my class here. And we went in, and it said it was an arts center, and asked the lady if she would give us a tour. And it is now an arts center. The lodge sold years ago. We had never seen it before. They had the most amazing art everywhere. And this lady took a ton of time and showed us all over the place. Turns out it was Gustav Brand's art. He's an artist originally from Germany. He came in 1893 sent by the German government to supervise the decorations of their building in the Columbian Exhibition in Chicago. So he came in the late 1800s, and then he made a career of art around the Chicago area, around Michigan. Well, these ones happen to be in Pennsylvania. So I got to go see those in Allentown. They are in a lodge. And then we found some more. I realized we were going to visit my colleague at the Grand Lodge of New Jersey. There's a museum there. Guess who did the paintings once again? We're now doing a research project to see if we can find other lost and hidden lodges that might have his art inside. So one other story. We got another email, and it came to our historical society. A friend named Heath, he also happened to live in Ohio, and he said, I have some items that you guys might want to see. And so my colleague and I wrote him back, and we had some virtual meetings. This is pre-pandemic. And then we said, can we come see your stuff? And he was in Ohio. We went and saw him. And he had countless art pieces from different degrees. I put the skeletons on here because I thought they were fun to look at with my theme today. But there were all kinds of other costumes as well. These were hand painted by female artists that were employed by the regalia companies. And on the back of these, the reason I show you the handwriting there is they would keep track of how long they would spend on the art. And you can see it says, how long, 20 minutes, 2 hours and 30 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour and 45 minutes. So this lady, Vera Griffith, spent 5 hours and 5 minutes creating one of these. And they all have that on it. And they were all women, which is really cool. Some of them are costumes that were never made or never used. Some of them are ones that we're used to seeing all the time. Some of them were used in multiple different fraternal organizations, all for the same. But a cool story that as the regalia companies have gone out of business, what happens to this kind of history? It's disappearing. If you wanted to see the types of stuff that I am trying to save, there's a book called As Above, So Below. This guy wrote the opening. It has beautiful pictures inside. Of course, he's a Scottish-American singer, musician, record producer, actor, and the American New Wave band Talking Heads. And he sums it up well. There's an inspiring and wacky solemnity in these organizations. Pageantry and performance in an ecumenical social setting. Deep down, it must have also been a whole lot of fun. I agree. That's why I try to save this stuff. So one of my very dear friends and colleagues, Dr. S. Brent Morris, has studied numbers forever. And he was passionate about finding out the decline in fraternal memberships. and this is specifically in the States, but so he created this, and he is now retired, but I am very fortunate that I was able to study and work alongside him for many years. And this is one of the reasons that I'm trying so hard to save this stuff. There used to be over 6 million Americans, members of over 300 organizations that conferred over 1,000 degrees on 200,000 novitiates annually. This also had a huge industry of paraphernalia, dramatic ceremonial stuff that went with it, whether it was the Masonic lodges or the Odd Fellows or the Knights of Pythias, and more than 100,000 to join these other secret societies, lodges, chapters, councils that dot the country, almost coincidentally with churches and schoolhouses. So, what am I doing? I have been fortunate to create a Center for Fraternal Studies at Indiana University. And while the Masonic collections and materials are typically cared for, they're not the only ones out there. There are many, many other fraternal groups. The Order of Free Gardeners, the Ancient Order of Druids, the United Ancient Order of Druids, the Foresters, the Fraternal Forestry, the Independent Order of Foresters, the Ancient Order of United Workmen, DeMolay International, Order of the Eastern Star, International Order of the Rainbow for Girls, the Scottish Rite, the Shriners, the York Rite, the Job's Daughters International, Odd Fellows, Ancient Mystic Order of Samaritans, the Daughters of Rebecca, the Ladies of the Orient, the Independent Order of Odd Fellows Manchester Unity, the Grand United Order of Odd Fellows, the Ancient Order of Hibernians, Beta Sigma Phi, Fraternal Order of Eagles in the US and Canada, the Improved Order of Red Men, the International Order of the 12 Knights and Daughters of Tabor, the Native Sons of the Golden West, the Orange Order, the Royal Antediluvian Order of Buffaloes, the Brotherhood of St. Andrew, Civitan, the Order of the Hoo-Hoo, Dramatic Order of the Knights of Khorasan, Epsilon Sigma Alpha International, the Illuminati, the Imperial Court System, the International Organization of Good Templars, the Junior Chamber International, the Kiwanis International, the Knights of Columbus, the Columbian Squires, the International Order of Alhambra, the Knights of Pythias, Lions Club, Moose International, Optimist, Rosicrucian Fellowship, Rotary, the Round Table Club, Samaritans, the Sons of Norway, Seroptimus, Woodmen of the World, Benevolent and Protective Order of the Elks, Fraternal Order of the Moai, Fraternal Order of Owls, Fraternal Order of Orioles, the Honorable Order of the Blue Goose International, the International Organization of Good Templars, the United States Junior Chamber. I haven't even mentioned collegiate groups. I could go on. For centuries, fraternal orders have been influential forces in cities and towns across North America. However, for many of these organizations, the preservation of their legacy has been inconsistent, and much of their valuable history remains in basements, attics of members, or a dusty old lodge room, or left to their families who have no idea what to do with it. The Center for Fraternal Collections and Research at Indiana University wishes to celebrate the role that all these other organizations played in members' lives and communities large and small by helping to collect and preserve these fraternal materials and to make them accessible to the public. Museum, archive, and library visitors, users, and patrons understand the purpose of storages in their collections. They can see beyond these objects, and they're more interested in saving it, that it's not just merely an object, but it has some sort of personal story with it. And they want that to be preserved and shown there for generations to come. My research is often thought of as a cautionary tale. With several colleagues, we have created a place where we can preserve this history. But what can you do in your hometown? You can seek out these rare and one-of-a-kind materials and connect them with local historical groups or colleges and universities. All you have to do is ask. Use your social media, your website, and your publications to ask for help. Archives and special collections always need advocacy. Give people something to talk about. Get everyone from students to scholars and donors involved to help you clean up the places you store these things, and then they'll care about it. So, in closing, why do I do this? 2 years ago, I too inherited some stuff from an old past grandmaster. It sat in the corner of a room of my house. There were some aprons, there were some hats, there were some books, some strange-looking costume type things. One day, I was bored and I started going through the things. And I found something. I'm wearing it today, I don't usually wear it. It's a ring. It has a weird little symbol on it. Turns out it was my grandpa's. My dad had it, and I didn't know. And when I lost my dad 2 years ago, there it was. I know it was my grandpa's because I had my dad's, and his hands were bigger. This one actually fits me, and it's my size, so I know it was my grandpa's. So, some stuff from an old past grandmaster. It was my dad. That's why I do what I do. Thank you.
Especially the close, that was so beautiful. So we have plenty of time now for a Q&A. We'll be taking questions here in the room and also from the audience on live stream. Now, since we don't have microphones from the audience, I'd ask you when you have a question, raise your hand and then speak up really loudly. And then Professor Calloway will repeat the question for the listeners in the live stream so it can go into, so it can be picked up by the mics there. So anyone has a question, please just raise your hand. The gentleman there in the back, yes, you?
What was the archival new word you wanted us to hear?
De-accession. De-accession. D-E. Okay. So de-accession, he's asking what the archival word is that I wanted you guys to learn today. It's a real word, and it means prioritizing what we need to get rid of. It is a nice way to say sometimes we have to, in the cultural heritage world, get rid of stuff. It could be selling it, it could be donating it, it could be finding it a new home. Every once in a while, it's also sadly throwing stuff away.
Yes, Steve?
This maybe follows along with that. We have several hundred hidden collections in this province, in the basements and closets of lodge buildings. And I'm wondering what advice you could give to the people in the individual lodges as to how to go about
de-accessing.
de-accessing the stuff that they have in the basement.
Certainly.
And a sort of secondary thing like that, would it also be of use to just catalog it so that someone knows that, in In London, there are these things. In Sault Ste. Marie, there are these things.
So, and just to rephrase what he's asking for those that can't hear him, what do the local lodges do? They're full of closets and basements and they have stuff. How do they decide what to keep and what to do with it? And then if they decide to de-access, then what? And then he mentioned that maybe just creating some sort of inventory or catalog would be a way to start. And I would agree that you could start with a Word document or an Excel spreadsheet just to start and figure out what you have. As you start unpacking and digging through closets, you'll realize you have things you had no idea were there. So that's a way to start. Duplicates. There's only so many National Geographics, Morals and Dogma, Masonic Bibles, no offense, but there's many, many, many of them. And everybody's widow leaves it to you and says, hey, isn't this important? Maybe saving the best ones and finding new homes for those that, are extra. I've worked with a lot of lodges on what to do on a local basis. The best story I have about that, in Washington, D.C., I was working with a lodge, and they had sold their building, and they had moved, and they had put everything into plastic tubs in the back of the Scottish Rite. And they were getting a new home, so they wanted to get their things out so they could move them and take care of them. And so we had a work day, and we set up just regular old tables, and we invited anybody from the lodge that wanted to come help us unpack this stuff and see what we've got. Well, they're the oldest lodge in the District of Columbia, and we found a large, very heavy leather-bound book with metal clasps on the side. It turned out to be George Washington's funeral Bible. It was in plastic tubs in the back of the Scottish Rite in a closet with some old costumes. The current members didn't know it was there. So there is no telling what you guys could have in your local lodges that go with your local history that people saved from back in the day. So I encourage everybody to just have a work day. It doesn't cost anything. Go through your stuff, see what you have. And it's a great way to connect with new and younger members and get them involved.
There's a question from the live stream.
Yes, on behalf of the live stream and Grant Smith, I've got a question. What's the recommendation that you would give for digitizing lodge records?
Get a really huge grant. Yes, so the question was some advice on digitizing these types of records. It is very time-consuming, very difficult. Every single minute and record book is a different size. The handwriting from back in the day is difficult to read or see. Sometimes taking a photograph is easier than scanning on a scanner. So unfortunately, every time you deal with these kind of records, it's case by case. And I hate to answer that way because that seems like like I'm trying to not answer it. But it depends on the size, it depends on what it's made of, it depends on how fragile the paper is. So really looking at what you have in the age and then figuring out whether you can safely scan it on a scanner if the scanner is large enough, or if you should use a tripod and some very good photography to try to start digitizing. But then once you do that, where do you keep it? Is it just on some guy's laptop? Or is it in the cloud? Or is it on a stick, even worse? So you really have to think, if I'm going to digitize something, then where is it going to stay? Where is it going to live? Is there some sort of server or cloud resource that we can save this kind of history? And then how is it accessible? We just did a huge project at the university where all these wonderful films and other media were digitized, but they didn't think about how are we going to find it after? If you don't tag the materials with some sort of tag, you don't know what you have, and when you search, you can't find the things. So really figuring out where this content, the digital content, is going to live long term before you just start digitizing everything. I can't tell you how many historic groups and local historical societies I've come in and they're like, look, we're digitizing everything. And it's a bunch of people sitting around in a room volunteering their time to digitize it. And then I ask, where are you storing it? And it's always on that computer that they're working on right there. That's not the answer. So thinking of some long-term ways that this kind of media can be saved before we just jump into a digitization project.
Yes, please.
Every lodge, temple building, district, as well as Grand Lodge, has an appointed historian. So we have a lot of management. Is there an outline of items or categories or something like that of materials that would be worth cataloging?
Sure. So the question was, every lodge, chapter, group, no matter what kind of fraternal group, has some kind of historian as an officer and has stuff. So where do they start and what do you do? I would say that you can contact people like myself, people like our archivist here, and say, what do we do? And we can give you these are the most, and when I say valuable, I mean it's irreplaceable because there's only one. Nobody wants to buy somebody's old minutes from whatever year. So they're valuable because of the history inside those documents. So everything that's one of a kind like that, that's where you start. So if your minute books and record books are in an old closet that's leaking, move them. Just get them somewhere safe. If they're in the basement, if they're in the attic, and that's where damage is gonna, hurt them, get them to a safe place. Books that you can buy online, that's no big deal. You don't need to worry about those. You may get 1 million duplicates of some of the Masonic history books. Those aren't as important. What's really important are those things that are handwritten and hand done. That Masonic book that I showed you there, we're looking for more. Maybe they're out there, and maybe people are using them for teaching still in their lodges, and we would love to uncover things like that. Tracing boards, sometimes those can be very older and rare, and lodges are still using them everywhere. So for those of you that don't know, that it just has the symbols and they talk about what they mean to the new initiates. So those can be rare. Reaching out to some of us that do this. There's a Masonic Library and Museum Association, and there are colleagues of mine all over the States, as well as some here in Canada, and we can point you to them. And we love what we do. So we do it because we want to help you out and help you save the history. We want your history to stay local, so that way when they do research with it, it's telling about the people in the area that you guys are in.
The gentleman at the back.
Part of my collection includes tracing boards. I have several, but 2 of them are over 150 years old. They sit 4 by 4, 4 feet by 4 feet, and they are on canvas. There's no name of who painted them. I have no idea how to take care of them. They are hanging on the wall in a proper situation. But I have been told to take, don't laugh at me guys, white bread and clean them with white because they're dark. And I have no idea what to do. I have no idea where to go to do them. There's no one that says they take tracing boards and clean them.
Yeah, don't clean the tracing boards yourself. So the question is, this guy has some over 150-year-old tracing boards, and they're in a space that's safe, but how does he care for them? So depending on the paper, you could work with, if you, Canvas, okay. So making sure it's not in direct light, making sure the temperature of the area you have it is stable, so not too hot, not too cold, but year-round at kind of the same temperature. Making sure you have a plan for it. Where's it going to go after you? That's one of the biggest things I try to tell people, is especially collectors. They have these really cool things, and they've been collecting XYZ, whatever, tracing boards, books, whatever. And what's going to happen to it? And some sort of plan so that your family knows. So when you're not around, your brothers and your family can say, hey, remember those tracing boards? Let's make sure they're taken care of. There are art conservation people that do that kind of work, but I would have to see a photograph to really give you a little bit better advice. I'm happy to give you my contact info and we can talk.
There's another question from the live stream.
I have several questions from the live stream, but I'll start with a question from George Ansolitos. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. The question is something you might have addressed earlier or towards the end of your talk, the personal connection you might have to this study. George is asking, do you belong yourself to a Freemason, a Masonic organization, or to other similar kinds of organizations?
Certainly. So I'm asked this all the time. I was asked, the question from online was, am I a member of a Masonic organization? No. When I was a teenager, I was in the Rainbow Girls, and I did it for a couple years in middle school. I got very busy with high school activities, so stopped being active. I am a member active of Alpha Chi Omega. It was my college sorority. I've been an advisor for collegians for as long as I can remember, and really love working as a mentor and role model for females who have joined my same organization. I'm a member of PEO, which is another all-women's organization that is fraternal and does have similar tenets and practices and teachings in its own way. No, I'm not a Mason. My brother, dad, husband, uncle, grandpa, anybody else I can think of was or is.
Was your father or grandfather a Grand Master?
Mm-hmm. So the end, his question was about my dad. He was a past Grand Master in New Mexico. And so I grew up around this. That's why I care about this history. It was just part of our family since I was a little girl.
Yes, please.
So I want to refer back to the 4x4 tracing boards. The first thing that the speaker said was that he had no idea where they came from. How would he go about attempting, through museums, through yourself, to find out what the possible sources of those tracing boards might be?
Certainly. So the question again is about the tracing boards that our audience member has, and how would they figure out more about it, the history of those specific ones. So what we do, and I get emails or calls all the time, I found a thing, what is it? Is it worth anything? Who made it? All kinds of questions like that. So whether it's a photograph or a tracing board or a book, and so we have a lovely network of people like me, and we have a listserv, and so if I don't know, I reach out to them, and with permission of the person who shared it, say, hey, anyone know what this is? And usually we're able to answer it as a cohort together of curators, archivists, librarians, We've worked with these materials for countless years, and so typically things like tracing boards had similar artists, so we're able to look at those. You know, if he sends me a picture, I should be able to say it's this artist or this artist, and a little bit more information based on looking at it. I can't tell you without seeing it, but I have a bunch of friends that do what I do, so.
Do you have another question?
Yeah.
Okay, there's another question from the live stream.
There are several questions from the live stream, so I'm going to try to combine one or two. And thank you to everybody, first of all. A few of the comments are about the Grand Archivists and Grand Librarians, or the lodge members who are archivists and librarians. What would you recommend? Did you recommend anything in the relationship between universities like your institute or Brock University and the various lodge members who are also taking on roles like you? What would you recommend in the way of alliances or relationships? I'm paraphrasing and expanding on some questions.
Okay, so the question is, lodges that might be interested in partnering, whether Grand Lodge or local lodges or whatnot, with places like where I work or here at Brock. We are always eager to partner with people with this kind of history. And it's just part of what we're taught in library school, is that you know, we're here to take care of the stuff, but then also teach you how to take care of the stuff. So you can reach out. Obviously, here in Canada, I would highly recommend Brock and talking to them about, you know, are these some rare things that could be stored here instead? You can always come here and do research with them and see the things, but they have the proper archival storage. I was very fortunate to get a tour when I first got here, and they have everything you would want to keep your really rare stuff safe. You have to go through the archivist to get to it. You know, they bring it out to the reading room, you work with it there, you can only use a pencil. You know, we have all these rules in our field, but it's to take care of this history. So I would say reaching out to us and asking, and then if it's, you know, somewhere far away, we have colleagues all over the country, and we're able to connect you with maybe the right place or person. Right now, Brock and where I am at IU and another university in Australia are the three places I know that are at universities that collect this stuff. It's hard to take on a new collection. It is super difficult to get an administration to give us stuff storage-wise and money, and then people to process the stuff. So if the lodge can support financially, when you give a gift, don't just give the books and say good luck with that, but being able to support it, like what's going on here at Brock University, this is huge. So I actively fundraise for my center, and luckily have met wonderful people that have given me some donations. So that keeps it so that we can create that storage. We have to buy archival folders. We have to buy appropriate boxes. You can't just keep this stuff just willy-nilly. There's a certain way you store this material, especially some of these rare books and rare photos and things. You have to buy appropriate housing for them. And so a lot of times people don't think about, we're giving you our really rare book, but it's gonna cost us, you know, $50, $100 just to buy some materials for the right size to keep it. And then for us to catalog it, we also need staff time. So, so I really recommend, you know, reaching out to colleges and universities and seeing who has interest, and if they have a safe place where the stuff will be okay. that you might consider donating.
Can I ask a question? Yeah, I have a,
Sure.
I have a question. Thinking about the storage and the conservation, we mostly think about paper, which has particular conditions, and also about the canvas, but here you have some textiles. That must be very, very particular challenges, not only in archives, but also for the lodges themselves, because they have, a lot can happen to textiles. If you could speak a little bit to that and to the challenges of conserving textiles.
Certainly. So the question was about, we've been talking about paper and photos and digital stuff. What about the textiles? So as many of you know, Masonic aprons are some of the most beautiful and fantastic things that Masons have, but many of them were made of silk, and that silk is falling apart. And if it had some colors along the edge, the color has faded. So it might have been red in the past, and now it might look a little pink. I brought some stuff here, and later at the reception, for those of you that are here, we're gonna do a little show and tell, so I hope you can come by. But this is just a crown, and it says king inside. So obviously they were labeling it for keeping the parts straight of who got to wear which hat. And it's pretty battered. So there's a paper clip on the side, and if you know archivists, you know we hate paper clips. And it's holding this little metal thing around this together. That is not the way to keep your textiles. This particular silk is also very frayed. It's falling apart. It's probably pretty small. I'm sure it wouldn't fit most people of this day and age, maybe some kid-sized. But having this kind of material culture is really amazing, especially when teaching and sharing with students and getting people excited about history. Textiles are the first thing to deteriorate. So fabric just doesn't last. So whether it's an apron or a, costume, regalia, stuff like that, eventually it is gonna disintegrate. So we can buy it the best box, the best acid-free everything. It can be in a perfect room with no leaks at the perfect temperature, and it's still gonna deteriorate. That's just how textiles are. So trying to get it in a space where it's stable and not messing with it a lot, that's the best. I do a lot of stuff with scanning objects now, so making a digital representation by literally scanning it. And then you can enjoy and look at it online in at least a 3D version. There's hundreds of these, and they're all in different condition. There's probably thousands, actually. And I guess that for me, it's fortunate that some of these things have survived, even if they're not using all of them today. I also have so this belongs to the Rathbone Museum that I work with, and it's just a costume, but it's pretty incredible. This one is the C.E. Ward Company, so that was in New London, Ohio. And there's a little tag inside. It says regalia, costumes, and supplies. And there was a whole industry out there for this. And it's beautiful. Hanging it on a hanger is going to destroy it. So keeping it flat, keeping it in a box, obviously I just kind of have it sitting there, not in a way I would normally. But I have a lot of extras of these that I can use for show and tell. So I like to be able to bring it around, and you can see it was the guy that used to wear it. His name is inside. He wrote in it because he probably always wanted to be the guy that wore this one. So he put his name in there. And this could have been used for a wide variety of groups, whether Scottish Rite or Oddfellows or who knows. They would repurpose these, and the regalia companies would sell them, and they didn't care what fraternal group you were. They were like, you want to be a king? Here you are. So I love saving this stuff because it's really tells of what that was. to belong to some of these groups, especially when they didn't have things like TV and the entertainment and all the distractions and sports and things we have today. This is what they did. They went downtown and they dressed up and they did stuff in a theater, and they really enjoyed each other's company.
There's another question from the live stream.
Rava Wolf on the live stream is asking, given your background in the Cherokee Nation, do you have an idea of when or why the Cherokee first became involved in Freemasonry, and whether Cherokee Freemasons have unique objects of material culture?
Boy, that's a good question. So the question asked about my Cherokee heritage and any connections with Freemasonry. I have no idea. I cannot answer that question. So I would have to reach out to friends and family members back in Oklahoma. I have no idea.
Okay, the gentleman at the end of the row in the back. And then the one next to him.
Hi, good afternoon. Is there a standard or procedure or best practice created to safeguard the digitally converted assets, which might contain Masonic secrets that can be protected against cyber attacks?
Can you repeat the question?
My question is there a checklist or a best practice that you guys created to safeguard the digitally converted assets against cyber criminals?
Boy, that's hard. So the question is some sort of checklist to protect some of our secrets and private things that we want to keep digitally, but without having it get hacked. That's a really great question. I have several wonderful IT Masonic colleagues, and I would reach out to them to ask. If you take my name, I will connect you with them. So that is beyond my expertise. Even at my work at IU, I have an IT guy. He's amazing, and I couldn't do my work without him. So cyber criminals is beyond my level of being able to use the computer.
Yes?
I have an easy one here. What are the pros and cons if ever there is a PF session in a lodge or a museum, and what do they mean about the public trust after a PF session?
Mm-hmm. So the question is, again, deaccession and explain about the public trust again?
Public trust, when like collections are being sold.
Yes.
And it's worth the public. For example, a lodge or a museum is kind of like the accession.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff or the materials, and then it's open for the public. What do they mean about the public trust after the accession of the library, of a lodge, for example?
Sure. So, and just to kind of rephrase, it's sometimes groups have to, or universities or libraries, museums have to make some tough choices about what we keep, so we might have to deaccess. What we do in our field is we have something called a deed of gift, and if you donated something, say your lodge gave us tracing boards, we would get it signed. I had a guy last week come see me. He wrote me online and said, I have this really great framed fraternal lithograph. It's not Masonic, but it's fraternal. Do you want it? And I said, well, I've learned, ask for a picture first to make sure it's something you do want. And he said, I'm willing to drive it to you. So he lived about an hour away, and he brought it to me. And it was in an original frame. It's a lithograph, probably turn of the last century. Beautiful, from the United Order of Mechanics, and had all these cool symbols. So people often confuse the symbols with Freemasonry. So they saw this and said, oh, it's Masonic. And so some lady had brought it to his lodge, and she said, my husband had this, and I don't know what to do with it. And then she took it to a lodge, and they're like, oh, this isn't even our organization. But they kept it because this poor lady brought it to them. So when he came, I had him, he said that the master of his lodge was like, it's up to you to find this thing a home. It's not ours. And so it's taken him a few years, but he brought it to me. He found me by Googling online and said, I wonder if this place would take it. And then I had him sign some paperwork. It's just a very basic legal document, but it's something, you know, we could show you, I could give you a template for, and every place that, like a university or a library or an archive, we all have these, so that when we take something in, we either know we can sell it or we can't, and all of that is stipulated in the deed of gift. So that way there's no funny business or, hey, we agreed to keep this thing forever, but really the document says, oh, but I can sell it. This is becoming a problem with museums because people are deciding, hey, we could make money off the Picasso. The university needs some money, let's sell it. Art museums especially. If administrations change, governance of the lodge, governance of the university, collections could become something that are at risk. And so really making sure you have that paperwork and documentation so that you can preserve it long term. Or if it's something that should be sold, that it could be optioned for that. Sometimes when we take a gift to the university, at least where I am, we ask them, the donor, you know, I'm taking in 200 paintings. All 200, where are we going to put that? We have to have storage. Is it possible that we could sell some of them so that we can take care of the rest of them? And being really honest and upfront with the donors. We just took a big gift like this in Tucson. It was art, and some things were framed, some things were not, and we asked the donor, is this something that we could sell some of? And he said, absolutely. I just want some of it to have a great home and be taken care of. I want students to be able to see it. So very similar. So does that help? Okay.
There's another question from the live stream.
Peter Nonco in the live stream a little while ago asked a question that I think you might have answered to a degree, but I think it's a complicated question with multiple dimensions. So I'll read his question. He says, at the personal level, I guess maybe at the lodge personal level or your personal level, I guess personal level could be lots of things. What priority would you consider or give to material to archive? Things like decades of Masonic summons, minutes, Masonic costumes, etc., that are in the basement. And here's the new dimension to the question. Would Dr. Google help make the decision?
Well, so the question is, again, something similar about priorities of how you decide what to save and which things you take care of first. And the person asking the question asked if just Googling it would answer that. No. I would say, you know, there's lots of lists online about how to take care of your family heirlooms. There's a book called Saving Stuff. It's literally called Saving Stuff. Some people at the Smithsonian wrote it, and it only costs about $20. And it tells you, written by archivists, but for the regular old person, here's how you take care of a scrapbook or a photo or a whatever. Literally every kind of thing you can think of. So I always recommend looking for some sort of handbook like that. And Saving Stuff has been out for a while, the book has, but I still use it all the time. I show it to students because it's easy to read. I can give it to my mom and she knows what by, you know, it's one of those books you don't read cover to cover. You look up what, you know, oh, I want to save this toy. How do I take care of it? And you can just look up that kind of item, rare book, toy, whatever, and know how to take care of it that way. Again, I said earlier, periodicals, people usually throw magazines away. So those could be rare, newsletters, especially the ones that came out, years ago. Again, those are ephemera. So ephemera is stuff that was created but wasn't meant to last. So think of like a ticket to a concert or a sporting event. People do save them, but they're not meant to last. So things like that can be very rare. So programs to an event, just those one-of-a-kind things that there's only so many of them out there. These costumes are really fun and they're great for show and tell, but there's nothing particularly special about all these costumes. The Masonic aprons, the tracing boards, those are amazing. Those could be one of a kind. One that, someone wore last week, maybe not so much. But the older ones, so trying to figure out the date of what you have, because the older stuff is more valuable. And trying to preserve that in a safe spot so that it's not necessarily hanging on the wall or in an old closet or somewhere where it could be at risk.
You have another question? Okay, yeah, one. And for everyone here, you're getting towards your last chance. So if you have a question, think about it now.
We don't hear you. I can elaborate. We're getting to the point where we might start thinking about getting together in the reception across the hall and continuing the conversation there. If you would like to ask a question in a large group, please plan to ask it soon, or you can ask it in a smaller group later. But I've got another question from the live stream. It's from John Paul Gomez. Some of you might know John Paul Gomez, I wonder. It's a fun question.
Okay.
The question is, what's the most interesting item that you've ever come across? Or maybe the three most interesting. You've already raised so many interesting items, but I don't know how you would answer that. So a little fun question.
Okay, so the most interesting. That's really hard. I've been doing this a long time. I don't know, George Washington's funeral Bible has to be the most interesting. I just can't believe we found that in a plastic tub. I also tell a story of an American flag that we found. It was rescued by a prisoner of war. He was told to destroy it, and he just couldn't destroy his American flag. So he hid it and he brought it back to the States. We found it, a janitor brought it to me in a little envelope, and he said, "Heather, I think this is something that belongs to the museum." He was just cleaning out something. I opened it up, and luckily there was a letter in it that said who donated it to the museum. And so I wrote the guy. I was in DC, he was in California. He called me up on the phone. I sent him like a letter in the mail, not email. And he was so emotional when he called me, and he said, "Heather, I thought this was lost forever." And I said, I've only worked here a few years. This was lost long before my time. Would you like your flag back? And he said, "Well, let me think about it." And I said, "I do have an option for you. We're redoing a gallery, and we're going to have American history in this gallery. We would love to display this flag the way it should have been years ago." And he called me back and he said, "Yes, I want it on display. I want you to have it." And so we incorporated it in an exhibit. It is tattered. It was made from all different kinds of fabric. It was hand sewn. The edges are frayed. And he came to Washington, and he couldn't look me in the eyes because he had tears in his eyes. And he said, "I am overwhelmed with joy that you were able to find this and save it, and that now we can share this story with other people." So for me, that was one of the most moving moments in my career. And I'm reminded all the time when we find things like that and hear the real story behind it, that's what really matters.
Yes, please.
says, we also have a grand librarian and a grand archivist. We welcome contacts.
Yeah, so he just said that, you know, a lot of the Grand Lodges have a librarian and an archivist in that role. So often they have some sort of professional knowledge or training and they can help local lodges. So please reach out to them no matter what state, province, or wherever you are.
Are there any more live stream questions? No, live stream. Here, yes, please.
Is there any value in having a Masonic museum or central repository for artifacts?
So the question is there a value in having a central museum or repository for artifacts? Absolutely, that's what I'm doing. So I have a gallery that's going to be opening this summer, and we're going to change the stories all the time. Many Grand Lodges have small museums. The Scottish Rite of the Northern and Southern Jurisdiction both have. Grand Lodge of Iowa, Grand Lodge of California, Boston, they're all over. What I'm trying to do specifically with my group is not compete with these Masonic groups that already have these really wonderful repositories. So when I read you that really long list of all those other groups, I'm trying to capture a lot of that history because we already have Freemasons that are telling these other stories and saving that history. But what about the Odd Fellows and the Elks and all these other groups that, you know, some have just disappeared? So I'm trying to save that history and not compete with my colleagues who are already, you know, at the George Washington Memorial or wherever they are at a place that has professionals working with the items and telling those stories as well. So yes, it is an important thing. Otherwise, this history is just going to disappear. So, you know, the local historical society might have one or two things in their collection. I am good friends with the fraternal curator at the Smithsonian, and that's only a tiny portion of his job, and they have a tiny, tiny collection compared to these other Masonic libraries and museums. So you always think of like, ooh, the greatest museum, Smithsonian, they should have one of everything. They don't have the space. So they have some really cool highlights, but my friend Tim does not have the space to collect it all. So that's where those of us that can step in and try to save that history.
Just as a follow-up, are you aware of any governmental assistance to maintain museums and central repositories?
The question was if I know of any governmental assistance to support this kind of work. So that's one of the reasons I changed and left the fraternal world and moved to higher education. I knew that we would not be able to afford to take care of this stuff the same way with professionals as we can in higher ed. So I took a job demotion, I took a pay cut, I left the fraternity that I loved working for, and I went back to higher ed. And then I slowly worked my way back up and taking care of other collections and things like that. And I have been very fortunate in my current role. I've been there 5 years, and the Center for Fraternal Studies is just a side thing for me. That's not my main job. So by partnering and being at a university, I can apply for federal grants. So there are ways that now I am able to reach places that when I've worked with these smaller lodges and groups and clubs, they're never going to they could apply for that same grant, and people are like, the who? The what? Well, I have the name behind with my university that I'm able to partner with other universities, partner with other people, and also ask Grand Lodges and other things like that, hey, support us. This is a place where we can save this history. We have the right kind of storage. We have the right kind of place you can come do research. We have professionals that know how to take care of it. So I really changed my own career track because of that very reason.
Are there any more questions here? Yeah? No more on the live stream? Then I'd like to thank Dr. Calloway for a wonderful presentation. Before we go, I would like to now invite Jamie Ireland to the podium. He's Deputy Grand Master of the Ontario Masons and here to say a few words on behalf of the Grand Lodge.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. On behalf of our Grand Master, the Grand Lodge of Ancient, Free, and Accepted Masons of Canada in the province of Ontario, and the nearly 30,000 members that we have, I bring greetings to you all. What a great day this is. I can't wait to thank you. We do have a great partnership going with Brock University and our Grand Lodge. We certainly hope to keep the momentum up. I'm excited now. We have the in-person meeting as well as the virtual meetings. I think we're going to do great things with that. We're spreading our word, and I am so excited about that. I want to say, and I don't think he blushes, but when I think about the Sankey lecture and the work it took to get to this point, for our past Grand Master, Raymond S.J. Daniels, the work that he put into this, and so now I synonymously, big word for me, think about our past Grand Master, David Cameron. He carrying on this work, he's behind this 100%, and I go to him for any advice on the Sankey lecture, and I thank you, sir, for being with us today. I want to thank also Paige. Thank you so much for the work and research you're doing. Great work. We appreciate everything, and we're here to support you for sure. Thank you. I'm probably forgetting a lot of people. I want to say Professor Calloway. Thank you so much for this presentation. What a timely event for our Grand Lodge. I am a keeper of stuff. Someday my family is going to hate me because they're going to have to figure out what to do with everything. I'm okay with it, but they're going to hate me. I have my grandfather's ring. I wear it all the time. I have my let me pull it out, grandfather's watch I carry with me. I'm just a keeper of stuff. I try now, if I see any Masonic regalia at an auction, whether it's online or in person, I try to buy it and give it back to its rightful home, whatever district or lodge or whatever, I just love stuff, and I love this talk. Our Grand Lodge library, and I see Lenny Selman. You'll know exactly what we have in our Grand Lodge. You were our Grand Librarian for many years. It is just a treasure trove of stuff. Unbelievable. I've taken an interest in it. I hardly know where to start. There is just so much there. We've started to get some archival supplies to see what we can do. It's a start, Just for an example, our Grand Librarian and Grand Archivist, they were going through a book one day, and out of the pages fell a little piece of cloth about that big, folded up. So they opened it up carefully, and here it is, a Masonic apron from, late 1700s. It folds out to about this big and that big. They put it under glass, and if you go to our Grand Lodge, you'll see it there displayed. It's just amazing what comes out of the books themselves, let alone everything else. I will mention, and Victor, maybe get me in trouble for this, that book that you had on your presentation that you've only seen one of, we have one. We just have so much stuff. It's incredible, just incredible. We thank everyone for their donations of their libraries and everything that we get. We are not equipped to look after everything, but we're trying. We're doing what we can. It costs a lot of money that we don't have, but we're going to do what we can, and we're going to keep going in that direction. So I just enjoyed this presentation so much. Just incredible. While I'm here, I was just jotting stuff down when I was sitting there. We do need volunteers to help out in our library, and that's another issue, is manpower, person power. If anyone here wants to volunteer some time at our office and library in Hamilton, we would be more than happy to have you and get you in there and help to go through some of this stuff. Just incredible. Anyway, I thank you so much. I have been to the Scottish Rite Building at the District of Columbia in Washington. I do know of what you speak of, Hugh Fleming and I up there. We were there just in December for a installation of the Grand Lodge officers. Beautiful place. So, yes, absolutely. It's a huge building. We didn't get to go through much of it, but I can relate to what you're saying as well. I want to thank everyone again for coming and sharing your Sunday with us here. I want to thank Brock University, Elizabeth. I want to thank Michael. Thank you so much for all the work that you guys put into this, to putting this on. I just can't say enough, and I'm so glad to be here with you all. Thank you all very much. Oh, David, I had you wrote down in here too. As an archivist, I think maybe we can contact you as well and ask you for advice, or if we have something that we think we can maybe donate and get the money out of the university to look after it. We'll see how we can make out with this. Again, thank you everyone so much. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone here. Thank you, everyone who's been listening live online. So on behalf of Brock University. Now, before we leave, I believe Mike wanted to say a few closing words, and then invite everyone to attend the reception and the Antiques Roadshow. So I give it to you, Mike, now. There you are.
Just a few quick moments before I release everybody to the food. We have some food that we can offer you and a chance to chat with Professor Calloway and our archivist, Mr. Sharon. We have an Antiques Roadshow coming up soon. But first, I would like to invite Paige Groot to come back on stage for a special presentation. And Heather, could you please come as well for just a moment? We have a small token of our thanks to present to Heather some of the bounty of the Great Niagara region to take along on the way back home. You can guess what it is. We have several students in the back who can help all of you find your way to the reception. It's not very far away. It's just down a set of stairs right across the hall, straight ahead if you follow my direction. But if you have any challenges with stairs and you would prefer not to use the stairs, to go down a level, look for a Brock University looking person to direct you to the elevator, okay? And to the market hall for a reception where Heather Calloway and David Sharon will display some more stuff. I have my own collection of stuff, but luckily we didn't bring that along. They have some neat stuff to show and to talk with you about. If you have brought things along that you would like to show and discuss with them, please talk to them. We also have some extra posters that Professor Calloway could sign if you want to take a memento along with you. Thank you, everybody, so much on behalf of Brock University. It's really great to see you all. So many familiar faces. Please come and chat. But first, just very briefly, I'll ask all the presenters to come to the front just for a really quick photograph, if you could. We will be there very soon. Enjoy the food. Wait just a few minutes. We'll be there as quick as we can.
I was surprised when I saw that.
Victor,
Thank you.
Greg, take this out, right?
Can we do it over here so that we get to Brock University? Is that okay?
There's that.